Go ahead and show our audience. Do you care about life on land? Do you care about life at sea? Do you care about the environment? I hope you've answered yes to all three of these questions. So global warming is a serious issue that poses a threat to all three of these things. My name is Jacob Harry. I'm a senior physics major, so I feel like I understand this topic pretty well. And today I'm going to try to educate you guys on the subject. What I'm going to talk about first is how the Earth is a natural greenhouse. I'm going to talk about the greenhouse gases and how we contribute to them. And I'm going to talk about how we've proven some of our contribution, and I'm going to talk about the effects that global warming is going to have. So going back to how the Earth is a natural greenhouse, National Geographic actually did an article on global warming, which covers that the Earth wouldn't be livable if we didn't have our atmosphere with greenhouse gases. So our gases, the greenhouse gases actually capture and help the Earth retain heat, and if we didn't have that atmosphere, the Earth would be about 60 degrees colder. NASA's article on global warming explains this phenomenon pretty well. So what you see happening is sunlight will hit the Earth, and then from the Earth it'll be absorbed. It'll be re-radiated as in the form of heat from the surface of the Earth, and it'll go upwards. As it goes upwards, it'll hit those greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and they'll capture most of that heat and redirect it. So what we've seen happening is the greenhouse gases have been going up. There's been more and more of them in the atmosphere, which means that they're retaining more and more heat. Now, NASA goes over the four main greenhouse gases. They are methane, nitrous oxide, chlorofluorocarbons, and then the most important one, which is carbon dioxide. And I'll go further into detail into that. So carbon dioxide, it mainly comes from deforestation and the burning of fossil fuels, which fossil fuels produce much more carbon dioxide than anything else. Now that we've established the greenhouse, that the Earth is a greenhouse, what the greenhouse gases are, let's talk about the proof that we have that we're contributing to the greenhouses. So the United Concerned Scientists Organization, which is just an organization of thousands of scientists that have come together to try to educate people about climate change, have a very nice article that goes over proof that we have. One of the main proofs or forms of proof that we have is the increase in carbon dioxide that we've seen. So in the pre-industrial area, it is approximated that there's about 280 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the air, and then now we see that there's about 400 parts per million. And then scientists have also tested the carbon dioxide, and they found out that most of it has come from the burning of fossil fuels. Something else that scientists have done is mathematical modeling. So what they did was they had a graph, and they had the observable temperature change that we've seen on it. Then also on this graph, they had two different predicted temperature changes. They had one for just the natural forces of how the climate should be if humans weren't on it, and then they had a graph that was the natural forces plus how humans have contributed. So the graph with the natural plus the human forces actually much more accurately depicted the observable changes that we've seen in the temperature here in the recent past. And then another there was also a study that shows that 13 out of the 15 hottest years on record actually likely wouldn't have happened if we've never had any coal or oil emissions, which they produce a bunch of carbon dioxide because it's a combustion reaction. Now that we've talked about the proof for our contribution to global warming, let's talk about the possible effects, like what it's going to do to the Earth. So NASA stated that we've already started to see how glaciers are melting, and then ice that forms in the winter, it's melting earlier every year. We've already started to see flowers blooming earlier, and then the temperature's been going up. Along with the temperature going up over the next century, we're expecting to see the climate to continue to change. What's going to happen is, now how bad this change is really depends on the next 30 years on how much more greenhouse gases are emitted into the atmosphere. Moving on to the United Concerned Scientists list of some of the effects. On the northern hemisphere, we've already seen that spring is coming about 10 days earlier on average. And then in areas where it's normally hot and wildfires can occur naturally, well, you'll have longer, more intense wildfire seasons, which means that it's hotter and drier, so the wildfires are going to be able to burn much more intensely and cause much more destruction. And then areas where you experience long droughts, the droughts are going to be much more intense. They're going to last much longer, which will put pressure on the water supply for both the animals and the people around it. And then in areas where you have heavy rain, the storms will actually be much more intense and they'll produce much more rain at once. So what you'll see happening is much more intense flooding, which will be more destruction for the habitats around it. And then for the oceans, we're actually going to see a rise in the sea level of a couple feet in the next 100 years. And then with that, we're expecting to see much stronger hurricanes that are actually be bringing much more destruction to the earth. Lastly, sea life, as the ocean gets warmer and warmer with the glaciers melting, it's getting more acidic, and what's happening is it's becoming very dangerous to corals, shellfish, and phytoplankton, which are all three very important species for the ecosystems we have in the oceans. So in conclusion, we've talked about how the Earth is a natural greenhouse. We've talked about the greenhouse gases, and we've talked about mainly our contribution with carbon dioxide. We've talked about how scientists have proven with math models and testing the parts per million of carbon dioxide that we are contributing, or excuse me, sorry about that. Scientists have proven that we're contributing to the carbon dioxide. And then lastly, we discussed all the bad effects that global warming does have on the Earth. So with all this information, I hope you guys have learned something, and I hope that you will help us take action for a better future. And then we can go ahead and end with the audience.